Hello, welcome to another Week in Review. I am Udumbuch, once again standing in for Ade Darame. For those of you unfamiliar with our format, this is what we do. We take 10 headline stories and sink our teeth into them. And this week, some of the stories we have is that the customers' conflict. We will discuss the fallout of this conflict on Gambian soil. And the Gambia Association of Local Government Authorities expressed their displeasure at the President's decision to give the Governor the responsibility for shop allocations in the reconstructed Bassa Market. And we also have this from the OIC. Gambia is still the rightful host of the 2022 OIC Summit, which prompts the question, why restate it? We thought we all knew that. We'll go into that and many more. And here to help me chew over these stories is the sharp tooth, Aliou Cisse of QTV.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mboch. It's a pleasure to be back on the Weekend Review. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. Now, let's get cracking. First story. The recent flashes of conflict between the Senegalese army and the MFDC separatist fighters in Casamance have had a toll on the villages along the Gambia southern border with Senegal. That's in Fonyi. Let's just take a look at this clip.
Residents here who enjoyed some relative calm for the past weeks, Monday woke up to the reality of having to desert their homes once more. Loud sounds of selling from the Balen end of the border rang through their homes. Many are still in shock and struggling to come to terms with what is happening in their once relatively peaceful communities. Scores of residents from the border villages of Kappa and Balen ran for safety to Kampant, where they were received with open arms. The impact of Monday's selling could be seen everywhere, right on the outskirts of Kampant. Farms and what were once thick bushes, where animals grazed, all burnt to ashes. As is often the case, civilians in conflict situations paid dearly for what they had no hand in starting.
Hello there. It is often said that the first casualty of war is truth, but I'm sure not far behind is ordinary people, civilians. They bear the brunt of conflicts and war situations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboch. Once again, it's a pleasure to be back on the Weekend Review. And by the way, that was a brilliant piece by my colleague Ansumana Esonyasi on what you have seen, the unfortunate incident in Fonyi, being a refugee in your own country of a conflict that you have that you are not responsible of. It's rather unfortunate that the issue of the Casamance region, the separatists, as they would love to be called, or freedom fighters, they don't want to be called rebels, as some people will call them. This war has been going on for decades. Still there is no breakthrough. At some point we saw there was that calm. It's been quite a couple of years. We haven't had such incident in the Fonyi region. And it seems from 2017 to now, the suspicion is still there. Under Jammeh, it was the Senegalese government who were suspicious of Jammeh then, because they thought Jammeh had a hand in what the separatists are doing in the southern part of Senegal. And now what we are saying is more like the separatists also having suspicion of the Gambia government for perhaps aiding or trying to support the Senegalese forces who are in Fonyi. And you talk to so many people, what they will tell you, this conflict, is something that is getting worse. For me, I'm not saying this thing subsiding any moment from now. What we have seen so far, we saw previously, there was that clash between the Senegalese forces in the Fonyi region, resulting in the rebels, capturing 9 of them who were later released after negotiation. And for me, certainly, I knew something of this will happen. We have seen it in several parts of the world where, when such happened, a government like Senegal wouldn't just sit down and fold their hands. For them, that was an embarrassment having 9 of their soldiers arrested by the rebels. So they will try to attack just to make it look as if they are ready to really fight the rebels. But the incident.
So this is quite interesting to me, because the first time, the recent encounters, as it were, began on Monday, didn't it? 24th.
Yeah.
And they said the reason then given was that they were chasing timber smugglers. But this is it. But this time, one wonders what triggered this one. So it sort of lends credibility to the idea that this was a retaliatory.
Retaliation, exactly. For me, I really anticipated that there will be a retaliation from the Senegalese government. I mean, for them, this was humiliating, having the rebels captured like 9 of their soldiers, and then they will only negotiate to have them released. And for me, I saw this one coming. But I mean, if you look at the impact, for me, I'm so much worried about the impact it is having on our country as an independent country, which is the Gambia. People who have no responsibility of what is happening in Fonyi, in the Casamance region, are now paying the prices, which is quite unfortunate. I mean, if you listen to the story by my colleague Ansumana, I mean, how many people have abandoned their homes? I mean, all those communities are now deserted. I mean, people are running for their lives. The bus is being burnt. So it's quite unfortunate, Mr. Mboj. And then for me, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it's high time that the Gambia government also take their stance as far as this is concerned. I mean, the Gambia is very strategic as far as this whole thing is concerned, and the government should really ensure that, I mean, they really try to manage this crisis, and we shouldn't be seen as being used, I mean, to facilitate a war in another country. And one thing that the government should start considering now, we should try by all means to ensure that these Senegalese forces in the Fonyi region, if they are really under economic, I mean, they should really be withdrawn, and let's have a foreign force, for example, the Ghanaians or the Nigerians, sent to Fonyi. I mean, for me, the suspicion is still there. Having these forces in the Fonyi region is still, you know, bringing about the suspicion between the separatists and the Gambia government.
That is it. And I've heard a lot of people say something like that. Perhaps the government might respond by saying that the economic command is not under them. Yeah. ECOMIC has got its own autonomous command structure, as it were, and its own decision-making body. So what would you make of that?
Yeah, but I mean,
wouldn't that sort of limit perhaps what the president can do? So what do you think he can do?
Even at that, we need to understand the ECOMIC were here at the request of the Gambia government. I mean, it was a request made to the ECOWAS, to this regional body, to have these forces come here. And then the reason why they were here, we all knew it was because there was that impasse, and that's why they were here. And then the person that made them to come here is normal in this country. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, initiating the talks. You know what? We would love you to make that change. Perhaps we can move the Senegalese from Fonyi region and then take the Ghanaians there. Maybe somehow that will, I mean, you know, prevent all what is happening. And not only that, even if you go to the people who live in Fonyi, there's still the suspicion between the people of Fonyi and these Senegalese forces there. So for me, I mean, it is something that the Gambia government really has a responsibility, because I mean, this is the Gambia, so they can initiate the talks, and then they just to make sure there's a change as far as, I mean, the forces in the Fonyi region is concerned. But then, one thing that I really have to emphasize is that no matter what happened, I mean, the government and the people of this country should and never allow the Gambia to be used, I mean, to fight a war that is not in this country. For me, I don't think that should happen.
Certainly, it's certainly not in our interest. Yeah. But here, what you're saying, that perhaps Barrow could have appealed to ECOMIC to let them know that, given our dynamic, our political dynamics here, as part of the political balancing act, because we don't want to get involved in there, to withdraw the Senegalese.
Yes, that's exactly what I have said. I mean, and then you talk to some people. I mean, they were like, even the forces that left from Dakar to Casamance, they travel through the Gambia. Well, I mean, freedom of movement. I mean, these Senegalese have been traveling through the Gambia to Casamance. So I mean, someone might say, I mean, why would the Gambians allow the Senegalese to use the country to travel? To go to Casamance to fight this battle with the rebels. But then, for me, I mean, it is very important that the government really take their stance. Gambia is an independent country. So, I mean, whatever it is, I mean, it's true, Gambia and Senegal, we share a lot in common. I mean, the only thing that might have divided is the colonial rule. But, I mean, when it comes to these kind of things, I mean, peace and security, we shouldn't compromise it.
Okay, that's very interesting. But I will ask you this. This is a charge that Senegalese people, the Senegalese authorities tend to make, that Gambia has allowed itself to be used as a base by the MFDC.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you will realize that during Jammeh, that's why I say the suspicion has been there. Previously, it was the Senegalese government who had the suspicion on Jammeh, that Jammeh was the one who was supporting the rebels, and most of them will run from Casamance and come into the country.
But we've got a lot of reports that
exactly.
these things were happening.
Exactly, were happening. And I mean...
So you see how tricky it is.
Exactly.
If we want to be neutral,
exactly,
then we cannot have that kind of complicity on our side. Then we should be neutral. They cannot use the Gambia for anything. So you got to have it from both ways
even with that, even where as okay, we having the reports of having some of them running into the country, we can still have our fine men and women in uniform to patrol the borders to ensure that nothing of sort of that happens. For me, that's my opinion. And then we have seen when this thing happened, we saw the announcement the president has pledged $5 million to help those who have been displaced by this war. I mean, I'm not sure whether this is a personal pledge from him as the president or the government. It's not clear. But I mean, I think the response, is important.
It's the humanitarian response.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think prior to the president pledging the $5 million, I think there were reports that families who had absorbed these displaced people who were fleeing for safety, saying that they really had no help, as it were. So hopefully with the $5 million there will be help, and perhaps more will come.
And I think it's important, when such happen, the government also shouldn't just fold their hands and keep quiet. It's always good to communicate. It's important. And then what we have seen, the communication.
Well, there was a press release.
Exactly, there was a press release, but the communication should be better. When such happen, you should always communicate for people to know what the government is doing. And
the task force.
Exactly.
Remember, there was a presidential task force after January 20th. We haven't heard anything
from the task force until this one also happened. So that's why I say the communication is really lacking.
Thank you very much there, Aliu, for your views. Now to our next story. The Gambia Association of Local Government Authorities during the week criticized President Barrow's decision that the governor of URR, Sam Baba, will be responsible for allocating shops at the reconstructed Bassa Market. Now here, let's listen to Landing B. Sane, who is the chairman of Mansakonko Area Council, also the association's president.
And responsibilities of the Bassa Area Council as per the Local Government Act 2002, the president's decision to assign the governor to lead the allocation of the cantines at the new market is by far one of the highest infringements.
Did you hear that? One of the highest infringements of
the local government.
Yes, going beyond your powers. What did you make of that? It's quite interesting that when the president made the announcement, was it during the inauguration? He spoke in fuller, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was that the reason? Because it seems that nobody had batted an eyelid. I don't think anybody said much. Yeah. Until now, I'm wondering, it's been what? How long has it been since the president opened it? Until now, maybe now they're beginning to feel the pinch. They're beginning to feel really the effects of that decision. Is it?
I think for me, the issue of the Bassa Market is all about politics. That's what is at play as we speak, and then these are issues that most of us who have been following this project of the Bassa Market hardly anticipated. Knowing the fact that the current chairman of the Bassa Area Council is not saying an eye to eye with the president because they belong to different political parties, and then because of that, there's so much interest.
So I've heard that the chairman is UDP.
Exactly, and because of that, there has been so much interest as far as this Bassa Market is concerned. You realize that even at the start of the project, some people were suggesting that the market should have been moved to another location, but there were there were arguments here and there, and they had to maintain the market where it was. And now it has been completed. The president, what he said he knew very well that the area council is responsible for managing the market.
Yes.
But in this case, as far as the allocation is concerned, is that whoever is to be allocated a stall at the market has to be approved by the governor. Right.
But one wonders, why does he feel the need to do that? If I concede that the council should manage the affairs of the market, then why do I have to add another bureaucratic layer You know, you have to go to that's why.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, there's more to that. I mean, there's politics in this whole thing, right? Perhaps also, I mean...
Is it to control it, not to allow the chairman to give it to his own people?
Exactly, man. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. Okay, maybe perhaps also the area council, you know, will choose to give it to people who actually are in support of their agenda, and not those who are in support of the NPP or the president. That's just my opinion, not
even that, let's put it in context as well. Yeah. We've heard reports, particularly with the National Assembly, the scrutiny, remember the scrutiny sessions they held, you know, when they were looking into the financial statements of these authorities. We saw what the audit report said. And ordinary people have occasionally, to be nice, to put a fine gloss on it, occasionally riled against the councils and accusing them of bribery, nepotism, particularly when it comes to these shop allocations in markets. So a lot of people have not been happy with the councils. So
exactly, and that's why you realize that, I mean, in that report, I mean, the chairman is said to have, I mean, they're selling forms to people who once stole at the market, and they have even sold forms more than the number of shops at the market. Why would you do that
at $500?
Yes. Why? And then and then how will you determine who should get it or not? For me, I mean, if you were to ask me, the first priority should have been those who were there when the incident happened. These people should be the first priority. And then anybody else can follow. But those who were there when the incident happened should be given the priority. And then why do you have to sell forms more than the number of stuff that you have in the market? But for me, it all boils down to politics. It all boils down to politics. And so the president is also trying to ensure that, I mean, the subs are not given to people who don't deserve it. And then on the other hand, the GALGA, the Gambia Association of Local Government, is also saying, no, Mr. President, no. It's true the market was constructed by your government, but I mean, you don't have the powers, constitutionally you don't have the powers to determine how this market should be allocated or who should be responsible.
That's the interesting part.
Exactly.
The legality.
The legality of it, yes.
That sort of thing. Yeah. I'm sure this
but then
issue wouldn't go away soon.
Exactly. That's what
more
interesting times ahead as far as this whole issue is concerned. I understand at some point even the Basse Area Council was thinking of taking a legal action.
We'll see what happens.
So let's see what happens as far as this matter is concerned.
Thank you very much there, Alu. Now to our next story. This is a press release from the State House. The Secretary General and Party Leader of the National People's Party, His Excellency Adama Barrow, will embark on nationwide tour from 19th to 31st of March 2022. The tour will give the President opportunity to thank the people for the trust and confidence they showed in voting. That was our story. And then, of course, there will be the campaign as well for the NPP candidates. What do you make of this store?
Well, for me,
is it the Meet the Farmer store kind of thing? But this is like Meet the Voter store.
Well, I mean, people are questioning the timing of the tour itself. I mean, but it is.
But why surprise? I mean, there's an election about to take place, and he has a party, and he's got candidates.
Exactly, and then you see, it's just interesting. The same thing happened in 2017. You remember during the parliamentary election, the president did embark on a similar tour. And then in that campaign, we saw what happened. It was more like he was campaigning for the UDP, because at the time the president and UDP, they were in good terms. And then he went on that campaign, and we saw what happened afterward. I mean, UDP dominated the parliament, and because of that, also we have seen the president this time also embarking on a similar tour at a time when the campaign is on. The campaign for the parliamentary election is on. On the first part, they say the president is going around to thank Gambians. For me, that's out of it. Thank Gambians, he could have just issued a televised statement and thank Gambians for whatever, for voting for him.
Did he do a similar thing in 2017? This one I was just thinking, when he returned, when we had the official, the swearing in this country, I wonder whether he went down the country to thank the voters. Did he do that? I can't remember. I'm just thinking of the coffee.
Immediately when he returned, the only tour that he did embark immediately was the National Assembly election.
Yes.
Yeah, and even that one, we saw what happened. So many people were complaining, why would the president embark on such a tour at a time when the election was just approaching? And right now, what we are seeing is this is more like a campaign tour. It's a campaign tour because he wants people to vote for the NPP candidates. But as far as the issue of going to thank Gambians for voting him, I believe the president will have just issued a televised statement, perhaps use all the media houses and say, Gambians, thank you for voting me.
So here the impetus is more to campaign, as it were, than to thank.
Exactly, because for me, if you look at the National Assembly election, for me, this election is more important to the president than any other political party, because he knows the power of the National Assembly. If he doesn't get the influence at the parliament, it's really going to be difficult for him.
Okay, that's very true.
Yeah.
But of course, critics have been talking about using
State resources.
State resources. What do you think about that? And for me, I'm thinking of the practicalities of policing, or that law.
Exactly,
if it is a law at all, how do you monitor and control that?
Exactly, because if you look at it, if you go to the Constitution, it is telling you the president, should go should go around the country at least once every year to dialogue with Gambians. I mean, even though they might say this is one of those tours that he is constitutionally mandated. I mean, but the timing here is the problem. I mean, so many people, I mean, they will agree, okay, the Constitution has provided that the president can go on a tour at least once every year, but the timing as far as this thing is a problem. And now if he's going on, like they said, campaign for NPP NPP candidates, then, I mean, that's where the issue of the use of state resources comes in, because in this case, he is only going to campaign for NPP alone. So in that case, I mean, they can't use state resources. But the interesting thing is that we realized that in the last presidential election, similar issues were raised. And I remember at the time, Ahmad Ba trying to clarify. He said, you have to understand, he is still the president of this country, and his security, is in the hands of this country. So those vehicles that you see, those state resources that you see, are used by the security, because it is their responsibility to ensure his safety. So that was the excuse given by Ahmad Ba. And then for some people, yeah, it's fine. He's still the president. So these vehicles, government vehicles, are only used by the security. What we saw also, we saw the president using the NPP vehicle, code NPP, because we saw NPP 1, NPP 2. So perhaps this time also he's going to use those vehicles, because this is more like a campaign tour for the NPP candidates.
Exactly. So you see, this is what I meant when I said the difficulties, the practical difficulties of monitoring that sort of thing. The Constitution can say whatever it likes, but the reality of how things are done, there's always a gap. So, and we also understand, when I spoke the other day to Marin Young, Gambia participates, and was also telling me that. But actually we see these things about the use of state resources for their campaigns. We see it even in opposition parties. Because in their constituents, when they use official vehicles and all the like, that is also state resources. So they had seen all of this. Yeah. Everybody was at it. Maybe this is really what the problem is. Actually, we all believe in it. The only reason we are against it is that we are not in power.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, for me, I keep saying it. Like, I mean, okay, today is President Barrow who is in power. I mean, someone outside might try to condemn it and say, no, it shouldn't happen. If you are in his shoes, you will do the same thing. That's just politician for you.
That's the bigger problem.
Exactly. That's the bigger problem. That's the bigger problem.
Thank you very much there, Ali, for your views. Now, to our next story. During the week, QTV covered a story where police paraded 7 suspects accused of alleged robbery. Let's just take a look at some of the things that were recovered.
The recovered stolen items were also on display for public identification so that victims can recover their stolen properties. Among the recovered items are a brown vehicle with registration number BJL 8840M, 4 motorcycles, 4 bicycles, television sets, mobile phones, stereo sets, and gas bottles.
Extraordinary. There, you've got 7 a whole gang, as it were, of thieves. This is a worry for me. The first theme I want to discuss here is the worry of youth. Look at them, they're all so young.
Young people.
So there is a potential for brilliant, wonderful things to happen, as they call it, the youth dividend. Yeah. But again, the underbelly of that, those who perceive themselves as left behind, those who fall into crime, that could pose a problem later. have a
Indeed,
problem
it
with
could
youth.
pose a problem later, like you said. I mean, these are young people. I mean, for me, sometimes I don't just call them as future leaders. Some of them are even present leaders. I mean, it's just unfortunate that, I mean, anytime, I mean, we have such reports, it's always the young people who are always paraded before on national televisions, I mean, or private TV stations as people who have been involved in such illegal acts. It's just unfortunate, I mean, and that's why it is important that, I mean, a lot is being done. I mean, the statistics, I mean, we don't know, but then what is important is that the government, which is the UTBR, so really ensure that a lot is being done to have these young people engage in productive activities that also depend on how ready they are to take up some of these productive activities, I mean, like learning skills and all those things. But it is quite interesting that, I mean, this thing continues every month. We receive 2 or 3 reports of people being arrested, I mean, for being involved in such act. I mean, in terms of the prosecution, I mean, that's also another side of this whole thing. I mean, the police will always call and say, you know, we have arrested this number of people, but what happened next is always a problem. I mean, these are the same people that sometimes they will commit a crime today, 2 weeks later you see them in the street, and you begin to ask yourself what happened.
That's it. And really how successful
exactly, and
statistically
in most cases, I mean, they will only arrest them, call the media, and tell us we are investigating. Perhaps these people are the same people that they would turn and say, you know, they were guilty, or they were innocent, rather. They were innocent, so we didn't find them wanting. That's why we have to release them. So why do you have to parade them first?
This brings me to my second theme, the idea of the parading. Because I remember an article some time back here talking about human rights and the Banjul Charter. Can you imagine the ironies of this? The Banjul Charter, where suspects are guaranteed certain rights of privacy. Because you are innocent. It doesn't matter what.
It doesn't matter what.
Until proven guilty, as it were. So what do you make of this parading of the suspects? I can understand the goods. People, you know, just give them the details, location, where, I mean, just give them the details of the people. But again, it's very strange for, you know, parade the goods, but the people, I'm not so sure. What do you think?
For me, it depends. I mean, like we have seen, like we've been doing on QTV, when such individuals are paraded, we always try to hide their faces, their identity, because like you said, I mean, they are innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. I mean, but for me, I mean, this is an area that we should really looked into as far as parading these people on TV.
Even though there we must concede they have their backs.
Exactly, and that's something that we always
but even that.
Yeah. And sometimes sometimes we mention names and where they're from. For me, I don't think that is really necessary as far as this thing is concerned. Yeah, you don't really have to mention names of these people. I mean, for example, if you say Ansumane Eso Nyasi of Bundong, I mean, how many people will know that perhaps it's not Ansumane Eso Nyasi of QTV? So many people might think it's the same Ansumane Eso Nyasi. Well, actually, you're referring to another person. So for me, I don't think, I mean, it's really necessary to be mentioning the names of those who have been arrested or even showing their faces. And then the police also should do better. I mean,
that's it. The names and faces maybe should wait until you've been found guilty in a court of law. Then I think then it's perhaps legitimate to release names once you're found guilty. Anyway, thank you very much there, Ali, for your views. Now to our next story. During the week, the Gambia and Senegal held talks. Here they're trying to come with an agreement where our 2 countries will eliminate, as it were, what they call double taxation of goods. Here we listen to the Commissioner General of the Gambia Revenue Authority.
Senegal is just now next door neighbor, and you will agree with me that there are a lot of businesses that are happening in the Gambia are owned by Senegalese. Likewise, we go to Senegal. There are a lot of other businesses that are there owned by Gambians, and I think it's only fair that they pay tax at once, but not to pay the tax in Senegal and they come back here, they pay tax again. Because nobody is in business to make loss. All businessmen are out there to make business, to make profit. So I thought it is a very good thought of him, the Honorable Minister, to initiate this trip.
Yes, and there. For me the surprise is that we're only doing this now.
Yeah, I remember, I mean, during the interview with the Commissioner General, I mean, I asked him why now, I mean, and then he was like, I mean, yeah, it has happened now, but this is something that should have happened a long time ago, because already, you know, they have a similar agreement with UK, Sudan, Qatar, and Kingdom of Morocco and other countries, and then knowing the fact that Gambia, Senegal is very close to Senegal's our neighbors, and you know there are so many trading activities happening between Banjul and Dakar. So it was important that, you know, such is initiated. I mean, like he said, this is just the first round of talks that was held in Dakar, attended by the Senegalese Minister of Finance, Abdoulaye Daouda Diallo, and other senior government officials in Senegal. They're expecting to host the second round of talks here in Banjul before the final agreement is signed, and then both ministers of Senegal and the Gambia would then submit it to the National Assembly for ratification. But for me, the most important thing is the impact of this double taxation. I mean, knowing the fact that it has caused a lot of problem for so many people, and because of that, we have even seen at some point when you get to the border, so many people will try to evade tax because of the taxes they pay are just quite high, and because of that, it also have an impact indirectly on us, the buyers, because that's why, you know, you have the prices of goods increased because of the tax that people pay at the borders. Paying two taxes, I mean, is quite high.
Absolutely, yeah. And it is in line with the African Continental Free Trade
Agreement. Exactly.
So this is the whole idea.
Exactly. So I just hope, I mean, when it is signed, I mean, we will not just have a ratified document, but implementation is something that is very important for me, and I hope, I mean, the authorities responsible will do everything possible to ensure that these things are ratified, but also implemented to the core.
Thank you, Aliu. Here we go for a short break. We'll be right back.
Looking for the fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, QMoney and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your QMoney account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any QMoney agent across the country to receive your payment for free, or use the money immediately to buy credit, QPower, and other QMoney services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sunu Calpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Week in Review, where we take 10 headline stories and discuss them in a bit more depth. Today, my guest is Mr. Aliu Cisse of QTV. Now to our next story. The OIC issued a statement during the week saying that the Gambia is still the rightful host of the 2022 OIC Summit. Let's just listen to the Head of Brand and Communications of the OIC Secretariat.
Yes, as far as we are concerned, up to this date, there is nothing that has changed in our mandate, and our mandate is very simple. Mobilize resources, implement them, and execute the summit in the Gambia. So far as we speak, nothing has changed in the Gambia's rightful role to host the OIC Heads of State Summit. And all efforts internally in the country are geared towards that. The preparatory efforts are ongoing, like I have been saying throughout this interview.
So there we have it. In the beginning, I asked the question on what prompted the statement, but we know that on social media, there were rumors circulating that we had lost the rights to host 2022 on the OIC Summit. He's saying, no, we haven't. It's still on schedule.
Yes, you'll understand he's doing his job. That's his job as brand and communication officer. He wouldn't come out and say, I mean, we have lost the right, but from what we have seen.
So you mean he was merely branding?
Exactly. For me, to be honest with you, if you ask me, I will tell you, I see no reason why this country, you know, should host the OIC Summit this year. We are not ready, Mr. Bush. To be honest with you, we are not ready. We are not ready. We had the opportunity in 2019. It couldn't happen because of lack of the infrastructure that was needed to host this summit. It was moved to 2022. We are in 2022. And from what we are saying, Mr. Boy, there is no way the Gambia can host this summit this year. What I'm foreseeing is this summit is going back to Saudi Arabia, because that's what happens when a country is not able to host the summit. It is taken back to the headquarters in Saudi Arabia. So certainly this summit is going back to Saudi Arabia, unless miracle happens. But from what I'm saying, no, we can host the summit this year.
So you mean the so-called rumors on social media?
Yeah, because if you look at it, if you look at all the projects that are earmarked for the summit, tell me which project is ready as we speak? Only the conference center, and even that conference center, the perimeter fence is not there. So obviously you're going to bring all these OIC leaders and host them in that sort of environment. The facility is wonderful, but there's more to that as we speak.
That's it.
The roads, I mean, from the airport to the main venue is lacking. You're talking about constructing a 5-star hotel. A 5-star hotel, which haven't started yet. The VVIP launch at the airport is also on course. So certainly for me, no. We are not ready to host this summit this year.
That's it. I mean,
and if you look at all of these projects, I mean, if you look at the time, the completion deadline is far beyond this year. So definitely, I don't think we can host a summit this year.
Absolutely. And some time back, there was the suggestion that, well, they demarcated it into phase 1 and phase 2. So there was a suggestion that maybe they'll be done with phase 1, so that one can just host the conference. And then afterwards, they will continue as what happened in Senegal.
Exactly,
that normally happens.
Because what happened, I mean, the phase 1, for example, if you talk about the route on the Batlanding Highway, it was started from the airport Johnson to Senegambia. That would have been the first phase.
Yes.
Then the second phase will have started from Senegambia going to Stincon.
Yes.
Right? Because we all know, okay, the summit is just a week.
Yes.
And then the projects will continue. But, I mean, from what we have seen, I don't think we are really ready.
That's it. We don't even have that, what one might call the irreducible minimum.
Exactly, exactly.
To really host
and to be honest, I mean, Gambia is given a lot of opportunities. We've given the opportunity to host this summit. Twice, 2019, it failed. I mean, you were given 2022, the same thing. Even though we understand because of the COVID-19, I mean, some of these projects couldn't be completed, couldn't start at the right time. But then, to be honest with you, no. Summit this year? No.
Absolutely.
No.
Even the way he said it, the Gambia is still the rightful host. Quite extraordinary. There was no commitment. He was just telling us what we already know, because maybe decisions have not been taken yet.
Exactly.
That's all it is. Decisions have not been taken yet, or perhaps decisions have not been communicated to the public yet.
Because the thing is that Saudi is always ready to host it. So perhaps they will just leave the Gambia, and then the last minute they will say, you know what, we're taking this to Saudi Arabia. Or maybe as we speak, arrangements are on how to host the next summit. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Of course.
Preparation starts much more earlier than the summit.
Absolutely.
So maybe something is going underground. And perhaps these are things that they already know, but they wouldn't come out and say, I mean,
that's
we are hosting the summit.
They haven't communicated
exactly.
it yet. Thank you very much there, Ali, for your views. Now to the next story. Stakeholders, they call them stakeholders, people who are involved in one way or another in the electoral processes, held a meeting on what is called the principles of human rights-based monitoring. Let's just take a look at this clip.
Elections are not only principles of democracy, but they also serve as a vehicle to conferring legitimacy on governments and ensure that people exercise their rights to participate in the affairs of the state. And therefore, the need for governments to organize.
Yes, that's it. All this training. You see, Aliu, I'm not sure how you would assess the performance of the media in the presidential, because it's always important, I think, because we're heading towards the National Assembly. Yes, it's good maybe to assess the performance there, what we did, so that we can address whatever deficiencies that we have identified, as it were. So any need for this sort of training, or even if we're going to have this sort of training, how? Is it being effective, I wonder?
Yeah, I mean, it's never bad to be organizing this sort of more like refresher trainings for stakeholders. This wouldn't just limit to the media, but even the security personnel who are always out in the field. And in most cases, I mean, when it comes to issue of human rights whatsoever, security are much more involved, because they deal directly with the public. But talking about the media, for me, I think the media really did great in the last presidential election. We didn't have major reports of relating to the media. But as far as, I mean, the issue of human rights and the security is very important, that, you know, the security are always, you know, reminded of their responsibility. as far as safeguarding the rights of the people is concerned. We all know during elections, emotions are high. People sometimes tend to forget about the laws governing this country and laws governing the electoral processes. And because of that, we have seen at some point, I mean, there are some clashes here and there between supporters and the security. So having this sort of trainings is very important as we approach the parliamentary election.
Yes, and as you mentioned there, because of for legitimacy.
Exactly.
Purposes and the like. But don't you think, I've heard from certain headquarters that some media outlets have been providing a platform for a certain kind of inflammatory language and hate speech? What do you?
Well, I mean, I think that's very unfortunate. I mean, that's where the media chiefs and the editors as gatekeepers should really come into, and so any form of hate speech is encouraged, because this country doesn't need those kind of hate speakers in this country. So what we need is more people to be more responsible as media professional. At the end of the day, I mean, you are there, you can have your pen and paper to say whatever you want, but you know, we should also be responsible to ensure that, I mean, you know, peace and order is maintained in this country.
That's it. Okay, how would you respond to the other charge often made against security forces and even state institutions, that they tend to be biased towards the incumbent? You might have even perhaps the IG of police. I'm not saying that it's doing it. This is just a thought experiment. But you might imagine the IG of police when you have maybe members of the opposition or any group that wants to protest against something to do with the government, they will just automatically say no. So we tend to have that bias
because
towards incumbent. How do you respond?
We've seen that recently, even in the case of Mamadou Sabali. I mean, we had his nomination rejected by the IEC. They applied for a permit to conduct what they say it's going to be a peaceful protest, but we have seen that permit is being denied. I mean, in terms of the security, trying to favor the incumbent more. I mean, we also have to look back at the last presidential election. For the first time, I saw even the opposition candidates were provided with security. I haven't seen that on the Jami. I mean, I think that was a good thing to start with, having all the candidates provided with security. And I hope, I mean, even this parliamentary election, they can also do the same for all the candidates. I mean, provide 2 or 3 security personnel just to, you know, ensure that all these candidates are protected. And I hope the security chiefs will consider that as well.
Thank you very much. Now to our next story. On March 14th, we commemorated Commonwealth Day. Let's just take a look at this clip. There we've seen it. Yeah. Isn't it the celebration of diversity?
Yeah,
as it were, one gets the sense right there. Okay, fine. Apart from that, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, some people will say, I mean, putting on your traditional attire to celebrate. I mean,
no, I mean the general, this more serious stuff about Commonwealth.
Exactly. For me, I mean, the body, I mean, you remember at some point during Gambia's time, you know, he actually withdrew the country from Commonwealth, and it was until in 2018 when there was a change of government that, you know, we went back to Commonwealth. And the intent of the body for me is quite good. I mean, we have seen, I mean, there have been scholarships, Commonwealth scholarships, and I mean, they have also been supporting the country in other areas, such as in, you know, when it comes to elections and all that. It is important for me, the whole intent of the Commonwealth as a body, I mean, in terms of supporting its member states, I mean, is wonderful, and having these children coming out to celebrate it, for me, is not a bad idea, even though some people might have a different opinion as far as Commonwealth is concerned. But for me, I mean, looking at what the body is doing for its member states, such as the Gambia, I mean, it's good that, you know, we are part of the Commonwealth body and have children celebrate the Commonwealth Day.
Yes, but this is the thing. Yes, it's got all its wonderful bits. There's no denying that. But some people think that perhaps it could have delivered a lot more out of all these sort of international bodies. I mean, I don't know, EU, even Russia. Out of all these international bodies, the Commonwealth really doesn't do much. Even within, you don't have Commonwealth countries trading among themselves. So what is it? This is just a talking shop. It's a very, very soft power. It's giving this veneer, as it were, of being a club,
yes,
but you don't have much economic benefits from it.
Exactly. That's why I said people's opinions, will be divided as far as the issue of Commonwealth is concerned. Like you said, those are gaps that are moving forward. I hope, the Commonwealth as a body will start looking into those areas, like you said, trading among ourselves and all those things, to further impact on the lives and livelihood of the people in those member states. And like you said, it's a good idea, to have them think along those lines as well.
Thank you very much. Now to our final story. Our male and female volleyball teams are preparing to go for the qualifiers to go to the Commonwealth Games in the UK. Let's just take a look at this clip. The male team, #1 ranked in the world, one of the pair. Let's just listen to him.
As we are working on me and my teammates, like we are 100% ready to for that qualification in Ghana. So hopefully, though we are the favorites, but
volleyball in this country has been doing well in the past years. For me, it remains one of the most performing sports in this country. They have really represented the country at the continental level, and having to prepare for the qualifiers in Ghana for the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. It's a good thing, and I hope they will go out there in Ghana and again, make the country proud and qualify to this world event. It's important that the Gambia is at the Birmingham, and I'm quite hopeful with what we have seen this team demonstrate in the past. They have all what it takes to really be at the games.
But first, the qualifiers in Ghana. It's going to be in Ghana, and we're facing Ghana itself, Nigeria, and others. And this gets me quite excited here, because it's not in many sports that we've got the #1 ranking team in Africa being Gambia.
Exactly. And yes, like you said, that's why I said, they have all what it takes to go to Ghana and make it to the games in Birmingham. Definitely, the team is good.
Absolutely.
It's good.
So we wish them well.
Yeah, and we just hope, the Ministry of Youth and Sports will really give them all the necessary support to go there and represent the country, because it is also important. In other countries, sports is not just about leisure, it's more about business now. And then if you really want your team to go and represent and make you proud, you should be really willing to invest more on them. At the end of the day, that's the only way they can also, earn something out of what they are doing for this country.
That's it, and we can all chip in, not just the Ministry of Sport.
Exactly, the private sector.
Everybody, we can all just chip in to help. Thank you very much there. Well, I said the last. No, that was the penultimate. So, finally, the trade fair.
Oh,
the trade fair also
is on at the moment.
It's on. Some yesterday was it? I was sitting somewhere and I heard people talking about the trade fair. People want to go. Have you been yet?
Not yet, but I plan to be there one of these days.
That's it. Yeah. And I've heard this time that we're going to have 500 participants from across the world. And over here, the theme has been local content, locally made products. And I understand that there's been a lot of far more and improved sort of participation by youth and women.
Yes, what we have seen previously, it used to be at the Independence Stadium, but where it is now this year is much more spacious than the Independence Stadium, and because of that, we have seen the increase in the number of participants as far as the trade fair is concerned. But then, if you look at, I don't know how much they are charging per stall for some of these people who are coming in there, and then because of that, some people are also complaining. Okay, it is meant to provide goods at a very reasonable prices. But if you go there,
And
I mean,
showcase,
exactly.
showcase
But sometimes, I
products.
mean, because of the hike in the prices of this stuff that they sell there, so many people really struggle. I mean, to get what they want, and because of that, I mean, you have some people who only go there just to walk around, not necessarily, you know, to buy anything.
And for the food.
Exactly, for the food. So because of that,
Which
I mean, some
bad.
people really, you know, will leave the trade fair without making much of, you know, profit as far as their business is concerned because of the price hike. I mean, you are charged almost like 10,000 per stall, and then, you know, you also have to charge people at the gate also for going in. So the intent is good. I mean, it's just to, like you said, showcase some of these products, but the price is a problem there.
Yes, yeah. So yes, from that perspective, one can see that. But here, there's another perspective, because I understand that a good number of you get the opportunity to network.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Because you have all these other traders or owners of businesses who open stores there. So you can get a network, sort of a region-wide network.
Exactly,
you can
because,
meet
I mean,
a Ghanaian or Nigerian,
exactly,
and then whoever.
Exactly. So you have people from outside the country who are also coming into the part of the trade fair. So the issue of networking, like you said, is also another advantage for those who will be at those who are at the trade fair currently.
Yes, sir. And the local content, that is so important. I remember for us when we were growing up, in many ways we had no respect for local content.
Yeah.
Everything had to be sort of imported. If it wasn't imported, then there's no quality. As it were. We had this crazy, this mindset.
Exactly. And some people still have that mindset that anything that isn't from outside, I mean, it's not quality, and because of that, people always prefer things from outside the country. But the good thing is that we have also seen some entrepreneurs in country who are, you know, trying to do their own thing, trying to, you know, I mean, to be creative somehow, to have our own locally made stuff for Gambians, which are quality, which are good.
That's the key as well.
Yeah.
There must be that quality,
exactly,
and then you sustain it as it were,
exactly,
because it's important. And how many times have I gone to sort of a Gambian restaurant? You just started it. In the beginning, everything is top notch.
Yeah.
Give it a bit of time, then you see the quality begins to drop.
Yeah.
So one must have that consistency,
which is very important. And that's a problem in this country. Like I said, at the start, things are always good, but once you start seeing people coming, you have so many customers, then the quality are dropping. And gradually also people also start leaving. So
this is how the market works. Thank you very much, Ali. We've come to the end of this week's Weekend Review. I truly enjoyed all your contributions to the discussion. And also thank you, the viewers, for joining us on the Weekend Review. Until next week, I am Mamadou Mbodj. Goodbye.